I'm Janice, and I'm a grateful member of this community. Yes. Actually, what I'm going to talk about is the Kol Nidre prayer, and you'll understand in a minute why I put the word prayer in quotes. First, let me say the words. All vows we are likely to make, all oaths and pledges we are likely to take between this Yom Kippur and the next, we publicly renounce. Let them be relinquished and abandoned, null and void, neither firm nor established. Let our vows, pledges, and oaths be considered neither vows, nor pledges, nor oaths. It is striking that we begin this critical day of atonement, one dedicated to introspection and taking responsibility for our mistakes, by reciting this blanket annulment of our vows. This practice raises essential questions, especially here at Beit Teshuvah, where accountability in recovery is considered paramount. Kol Nidre, the prayer most Jews recognize as the centerpiece of Yom Kippur, of the Yom Kippur Eve service, is so significant that the entire service bears its name. Yet, it has historically been a source of controversy and pain. First off, while none of this is evident in our translation of that prayer in our prayer book, in its original form, the paragraph has been described as a grammatical monstrosity, composed of a confusing mix of Aramaic, the vernacular of the time, which was the 7th century, and Hebrew, the standard liturgical language of prayer. The grammatical inconsistencies have also perplexed, even confounded generations of scholars and rabbis. Some verbs are in the past tense, others are in the future. Exactly which vows are we annulling? Those made in the past that went unfulfilled, or those we might make in the future? And vows to whom? Those made to other human beings, or only those made to God? In short, the words of Kol Nidre are laden with legal and ethical ambiguities, leaving us and generation upon generation before us feeling confused, if not uneasy. Since its origins in the 7th, 8th, or 9th century, this so-called prayer has caused significant ideological, moral, and communal rifts more than any other piece of Jewish liturgy. I refer to it as so-called prayer because it is technically a legal statement, devoid of any mention of God, lacking the reverential or admirable sentiments we typically associate with prayer. Throughout history, Kol Nidre faced attempts at abolition due to its distressing content. Writings from the 9th century and throughout the Middle Ages attest to the anti-Semitism fueled by its language. During the Inquisition, the prayer was used to portray Jews as inherently duplicitous. In some cases, Jews were only allowed back into certain regions if the community collectively disavowed the Kol Nidre. One medieval quote describes the Jewish people as, quote, perfidious children of Israel, whose religion permits them to perjure themselves in the dealings with the Christians, and then on the holiest of festivals, clear their conscience simply by reciting the Kol Nidre. This led to the term a Jew's oath, which legally questioned a Jew's trustworthiness and undermined Jewish testimony in Christian courts during the Middle Ages. Even after the Middle Ages, the Kol Nidre was so controversial that Reform Judaism, which started in 1810 in Germany, made a conscious decision not to include the Kol Nidre prayer in their Yom Kippur service. It was only added to the Reform High Holiday Prayer Book in 1961. I had no idea. Given its controversial history, it is inescapable that we ask why the Kol Nidre prayer remains the centerpiece of the holiest moment in the Jewish year. That's a tough question, and one which could be the subject of a much more in-depth conversation at another time. The question made me consider that there must be some reason beyond those that speak to just tradition and sentimentality. There must be a deeper significance which explains the remarkable resilience of that paragraph. One of the things that I've always appreciated about Jewish ideology and practice is the capacity, even the mandate, to reinterpret and imbue ancient texts with meanings relevant to today's times, whatever those days are. So upon consideration, I have come to a new understanding of the Kol Nidre. I find two resonant messages implicit in Kol Nidre. First, the words highlight the serious nature of promises and vows within the Jewish faith. there would not be such an emphasis on annulling vows if vows were not inherently very serious matters. Secondly, the words of the Kol Nidre acknowledge the universality of human frailty, which cause us to struggle to maintain our commitments. The late Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, a great scholar who was for years the chief rabbi of England, struggled with the literal meaning of the Kol Nidre too. As an aside, on a topic which requires much more attention than we can give it tonight, Rabbi Sacks concluded that the Kol Nidre was intended specifically for the promises made by Jews who were forced to convert to Christianity during the Middle Ages. But he too found it meaningful to adapt the meaning of the Kol Nidre to the 20th century, which was his time, and he specifically related them to the disease of addiction. Rabbi Sacks explained that, quote, the annulment of vows can be seen as a call to the community to be compassionate, understanding that addiction often leads to broken promises and pain. This understanding fosters an environment where individuals can seek help without the fear of judgment, reinforcing the importance of support systems in overcoming addiction, close quote. Another person familiar to most of the residents at Beit Tshuva and the alumni is Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel. He too adapted the Kol Nidre to the 20th century, as he taught that the Kol Nidre invites, quote, a deeper understanding of one's actions and the meanings behind them. And one of my favorite teachers, Yitz Greenberg, a great Orthodox contemporary scholar and rabbi, argues, quote, that the act of annulment of vows serves as a catalyst for renewal, encouraging individuals to redefine their relationships with themselves and their promises and their community. Ultimately, I conclude that for us at Beit Teshuvah, Kol Nidre provides a compassionate framework for reflecting on where and how we miss the mark. It can be understood as an inspiration, which encourages us to be loving to one another as we grapple with unfulfilled promises from our past and the commitments we hope to keep in the future. Kol Nidre offers a moment to humble ourselves, to reckon with our mistakes, recognize our flaws, be more generous about the mistakes and flaws of others, and support each other as we navigate this bumpy road towards renewal and redemption. Gemar Chatima Tova.